Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. You'll find us here airing our views on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also now Smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me as usual, the master of ceremonies, the star of the show, the what else can off the top of my I ran out of things to say. So just this wonderful young man, Aaron William Freeland, who
Thank you,
just
Frank.
came back from Montreal, where he was at the F1 race held in Montreal. I wish they had one of those here in Toronto.
Yeah, the only comparable thing they really have is the Honda Indy at the tail end of July. It's not bad, but it's not quite Formula One.
No, no, and I gotta say, I really do. I have to say that the excitement that it generates in Montreal is outstanding. And you were telling us about while we weren't on the air about the F1 tax.
Yeah, that was a rather interesting situation. We were originally booked into a little pied-à-terre that's basically student residence housing a couple blocks from UCAM in downtown Montreal. We got an email saying that there was an issue with our reservation and that we needed to contact them immediately. Um, I didn't because I had no problem with a fifth random person sleeping in a room for four people. And we were later informed at 12:02 a.m. on Monday, approximately 48 hours from check-in, that our reservation was no longer valid and that it had been canceled because the hotel was overbooked. Um, so I was up until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning securing alternate arrangements when it came to accommodations. And it turns out that we weren't the only group that had been overbooked at this same residence and sent to a different hotel. So there was a trend here. Apparently, I was supposed to have contacted the property manager directly and expressed to him my interest in buying out the fifth bed in the room for however much it was going to be per night in order to secure our reservation. So, there you have it.
So uh, I suspect, and I don't want to be that kind of person, but I'm going to try. And this is hard for me. I suspect they weren't overbooked. I have a suspicion here that you were undercharged.
They were trying to find the highest bidder, I believe. So,
They
seeing
do
as I'm,
this as a CFL guy. This happens at Grey Cup games in places where accommodations are minimal, to say the least, where the people who do have accommodations realize, and usually they don't realize till after people start booking, because this happened in Saskatchewan too, right? People were kicked out of their hotels um, unceremoniously, just as I guess they attempted or did with you, and basically it's because they go, wait a second, all these people are calling to come here, maybe we should raise the price, but people are already booked. Well, it's we don't have to honor it. Let's just say sorry, we don't have room.
they did send me an email asking me to leave a review. I feel I may. So, the first thing out
You
of the
mean a
guy's mouth
rebuke?
is
You
well, the
mean a
first thing out of
rebuke?
the first thing out of the guy's mouth when I called was, "Did you not get our messages?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got our messages. So why didn't you call?" Because I have no problem with a random person sleeping in a bed in a room with five beds with four other people. That's not a problem for me. That's why I didn't bother calling you. Oh, yeah, I know what's going on here, bud. I may have
Yeah.
been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Thank you very much.
Ooh, bada bum bum. Good one. All right,
Thank
why
you.
don't we talk about some stuff? Can we start with sports?
Sure.
I feel a little sporty.
Where
And
would you like to start?
well, we started with the F1. Is there anything else you want to add to the F1 conversation here that we started on a good note?
Sure. I mean, on a good note, Max Verstappen finished first again for you Red Bull fans out there. So congratulations to you. Fernando Alonso finished second with a brilliant overtaking move off the standing start to get Lewis Hamilton, who finished third. George Russell unfortunately did not finish, nor did Logan Sargent. Nico Hulkenberg was set to start on the front row, but unfortunately, he was deemed to have blocked a Ferrari, who also later blocked someone else and received a 3-point grid penalty, moving him back to fifth. He finished in 14th. It is what it is for the Haas team. I do feel sorry for them. I think Hulk should have started on the second row. It would have made things definitely entertaining. But we'll have to see what happens next year to see if maybe Max can win his third in a row in Canada.
Wow, a great driver. Staying in a European sport, European football, there's Italy that can't make, one of the best countries in football in the world can't make it to the World Cup. Now we have Germany, who are not playing like, well, Germany.
It's kind of funny, the Euro
Not
2024
funny,
is being
haha,
hosted.
because don't laugh at Germans. They're not good at taking laughter. So they're very serious people.
The fact that they're hosting in 2024 and recently lost 2-0 to Colombia is a bit of a concern for the national side. They're not happy with Hansi Flick, who is the head coach. Some fans even showed up with signs saying "Flick out." They didn't believe it. Now, Germany also lost 1-0 to Poland and had a 3-3 draw with Ukraine the previous week. So, unable to take advantage of the distractions currently going on in Ukraine, what with the continuing Russian invasion. Jamal Musiala, Florian Wirtz are two of the best young players in Europe that play for Germany, not to mention Antonio Rudiger, who also plays for Real Madrid, and Ilkay Gundogan, who just helped Man City win the Champions League for the first time. And for some reason, they can't seem to put together a decent bit of play. So, it's an interesting situation for them, for sure.
One of the greatest football players, and by football, I'm referring to what we in North America call soccer, one of the greatest players, at least this generation. This is a good transition. Lionel Messi is going to play for Inter Miami. They've set a date, Aaron, July 21st.
Yeah, Jorge Massa, who's the owner, told different outlets on Monday that his club and Messi had agreed to terms and are finalizing paperwork and a travel and work visa. The team confirmed that Messi will be signing a contract through the end of the 2025 season with a club option for 2026. It's going to be worth $50 to $60 million a year. He cannot sign until sometime in July after his contract with PSG expires. Which is why his debut isn't going to be until the 21st of July.
Yeah, North American soccer, by that I mean MLS, does not sync well with the other leagues. There's this crazy thing where a team plays almost half their games before the star player that they signed can play. That happened here in Toronto as well with Insigne. Let's talk about CF Montreal. I hear they're excited.
Yeah, they've had a bit of a rough go of it. The last time they were on a MLS international break, which was at the end of March, they started with 3 consecutive losses, conceding 10 goals and scoring none. This time around, they're facing Nashville SC tonight, and what should be their stiffest test at home to date. They're currently sitting at 7-9-1. But the club is 6-1-0 at home so far this season. So there is a hope there that the team will be able to bounce back. They're going to have a condensed run of 11 games over just 36 days. And then they had 10 days off. A 10-day break. So this is important for them to try to get back into it. They've been having some injury issues as of late, and having a little time away is not necessarily a bad thing.
Staying with MLS, Toronto FC they've had a good run the past few games. They've played much better. Cincinnati, a really good team, looking maybe to pad their winning stats. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, Cincinnati won its first 12 home games in all competitions this season, which matches San Jose's record from 2002. 9 of those home victories came in league play. They're currently sitting at 12-1-4. They're a fifth-year franchise that finished at the bottom of the Eastern table in their first 3 seasons and had just won 13 of 62 home games. In contrast, Toronto's back in 25th in the Supporters' Shield standings and has yet to win on the road this season. They're 0-4-4. Total so far this season, they're 0-7-4. Their last win was actually at Charlotte in August of 2022. So they're really up against it at this point.
They have a lot to prove. It has not been a great season for Toronto FC, but they're on a little bit of a run. We'll see if they can build on that. Let's move over to North America and let's talk about balls and bats, and specifically Major League Baseball. Clement, Springer, they hit in the 8th, lift Jays over the Marlins 2-0 after losing 11-0. A better performance by the team last night.
Yeah, there were rumblings after their first 11-7 loss and after their 11-0 loss that Schneider could possibly be on the outs with management. I'm not sure if that factored into this, but Ernie Clement and George Springer did hit consecutive RBI singles in the 8th. So that was a little bit of a bright spot for them. On top of that, Yusei Kikuchi allowed 2 hits and struck out 6 in 6 innings to help Toronto even the series. The Blue Jays had a 19-inning scoreless streak, but they managed to end that in the 8th against Tanner Scott, who's currently 4-2 on the season. Santiago Espinal had a pinch 1-out double, and Clement followed with a pinch RBI single. Clement advanced on the center fielder Garrett Hampson's throw to the plate, was trying to get Santiago Espinal, and then Springer hit a broken bat single to left, and Clement managed to score from second.
Brandon Belt returns for the Blue Jays.
This has been a spot of good news for them. He did have some hamstring inflammation, which caused him to come out after their last homestand. Now, his return, Bo Bichette was pulled due to left thumb discomfort and was replaced by Santiago Espinal. And Brandon Belt, after experiencing hamstring tightness, was finally released from their 10-day DL. So that's a good sign for them. He's one of the most consistent hitters for them, so it's a bit of a relief.
Canadian basketball, the Hall of Fame brings 2 in, one Tammy Sutton-Brown, the other Rowan Barrett.
A lot of people feel that this is a little bit overdue, especially for Tammy Sutton-Brown. They both now work as executives in Canadian basketball. Sutton-Brown had multiple titles with the Raptors since joining the team in 2021. She's the Associate Basketball Franchise Operations, Team Player Development, and Community Director. Barrett is the General Manager of the Canadian men's team. In addition to those two going in, player Joey Johnson, Allison Lang, Liz Silcott, and Greg Wiltshire will also be inducted, as well as referee Don Klein. This is going to be held, the induction ceremony is going to be held July 14th for those interested.
Let's talk about free agency in the National Hockey League.
There's a lot of that to go around. Silly season officially starts on July 1st. So we're looking at a whole bunch of individuals here that are currently available. Dmitry Orlov is one name that is floating around. He's on the wrong size of 30, but being a defenseman the size that he is, 5'11", 214, he can be valuable. Tyler Bertuzzi is also a top line player. He, however, is on the right side of 30, and by that I mean under it. Also, some familiar faces here. Ryan O'Reilly is going to be a free agent. Patrick Kane, Matt Dumba, Ivan Barbashev, who was actually on the Maple Leafs radar for a brief period last year heading into the playoffs. Alex Killorn, Vladdy Tarasenko, Max Domi, JT Compher. Here's a good one. Michael Bunting is potentially available, as well as Tristan Jarry and Aiden Hill.
Are you going to Edmonton?
Well, he might hook back up with Hyman. You never know.
Be going to Edmonton or Vancouver.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Tristan Jarry and Aiden Hill are both going to be available, and I know the Leafs need goaltending. Jason Zucker and Ryan Graves are both up, as well as Shane Gostisbehere and Scott Mayfield. So there's a lot of interesting names out there.
And Samsonov's available.
Yeah, he is. So is Klingberg. Freddie Anderson is available if the Leafs want to bring him back after his stellar showing through 3 rounds of the playoffs. Very obviously, I don't think Freddie was the issue when it came to the Leafs getting out of the first round, as he managed to go to the third with the Carolina Hurricanes. You know,
Absolutely.
Unis-
Absolutely. He wasn't the problem. And goaltending still is not the problem with the Maple Leafs.
well, there have been some issues with injuries and concerns like
Eh,
that, but you
eh,
do eventually have to bring Wall up, and you do have to bring up Shelgren full time as well. You know,
it's
they're the
not the
future.
goaltending. It's
No.
not the goaltending. It's the desire to win. They don't have it. They just don't have it. They don't come up big when it matters. And essentially, you always look back at a great run in the Stanley Cup Finals. Players or a player played above his head and or played to their potential, being the star players. That's how you win a Stanley Cup. Players playing well. Goaltenders, absolutely. But I think it's fair to say, Aaron, that was there a goaltender that played better than Florida's goaltender?
Yes, and he played for Las Vegas.
and,
Sorry, it had to be said, Fred.
no, it still makes my point. He was invincible. Why'd he lose?
The
You know,
wheels absolutely fell off for him. Is basically what
yeah.
happened in the final series. He was playing over his head. Let's be
Goaltenders,
fair
all
to
you can expect from a goaltender and all you should expect from a goaltender in reality is that they keep you in the game. And by that statement, that means that the team has to do their part. They have to be the difference. After all, it's one goaltender and what, 16 skaters, it is what it is. The Sabres, they signed a 1-year contract with Jurgensen's.
Yeah, this was one of those ones that I kind of enjoyed. Gergensons was one of those rare players that just seemed to click even after labeling in obscurity for a long time. He's going to be back with Buffalo for a whopping 10th season, signing a 1-year, $2.5 million contract yesterday. He's the longest serving active player and was eligible to become a UFA next month. Now, despite extending their NHL record postseason drought to a 12th year, the Sabres actually had 42 wins, their most since 2010-2011, which was the last time they made the playoffs. Um, Gergensons was selected in 2012 in the first round of the draft and has basically established himself as a fourth line guy, a decent and dependable fourth line guy. You know who I think might be a great fit with Buffalo coming up? Is a highly underrated free agent and somebody who still has the Iron Man record, Phil Kessel.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if he'll be returning to Las Vegas, but it'll be interesting to see if Buffalo takes a flyer on him.
Well, there's some talk the former Sabre wasn't a very good player and they won anyway, with Vegas. Anyway, the Hall of Fame. Lundqvist looks like a candidate.
Yeah, he pretty much seems to be a lock. There are currently 294 players, 113 builders, and 16 officials in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Each of the last 4 Hall of Fame classes have included exactly 6 members. I think what's important to note here is that they did expand eligibility for players and goalies, and in particular women players. But since there were 2 females inducted in 2010, the NHL has only managed to do maybe one a year, which is slightly disappointing because there are Megan Duggan is up to be nominated. Um, Jennifer Botterill is up to be inducted. The fact that only one of them is probably going to make it is a little bit upsetting.
The Habs signed Sean Monahan.
Yeah, this is a 1-year contract worth $1.985 million. He's a veteran. He's 28 years old from Brampton, Ontario. I think it's interesting that his contract is actually his year of birth.
Hmm.
This is one of those trends that I've noticed lately in the NHL. Jesper Bratt, recently signed a $63 million contract, which coincides with his number. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner both managed to work their numbers into their contract. It's one of those. I understand it. I mean, his 1.985 million contract is about what he's worth. He had 6 goals and 17 points in 25 games before suffering a lower body injury in early December that basically ended his season. I think that's on par. But the fact that Matthews' contract is, 11 point something something with
Three, four.
$34,000 tacked on, it's like, come on.
Yeah, it is what it is. Jerome McGinley, he's joining the Flames as a special advisor to the GM, Greg Conroy. They were
Yeah, I,
teammates too.
this is something that I think fans in Calgary have been waiting for a long time. He's going to be a special advisor to the general manager. Conroy and Iginla, spent parts of 9 NHL seasons together in Calgary, so I think it's safe to say that their interests and their focus will align. Uh, Conroy mentioned in a press conference that dating as far back as their playing days, he and Jerome had always indicated that they'd like to try to work together. Their relationship does go back 20 years and includes being opponents and teammates. So it should be interesting to see what happens with this combination in the front office, and hopefully they'll be able to right the ship.
A couple of buying out of contracts. The Oilers and Jack Campbell. What's the status on that one?
Well, the decision to sign Campbell to a 5-year, $25 million contract before last season already looks like a bad one. I mean, let's be honest, he didn't exactly round back into form. Ken Holland, it might be wise for him to consider a buyout in this particular case. It would free up some room for signings that they would need to make. $5 million a year is no small amount. That is 3 depth players or a, top 6 guy,
Or a better
bottom top 6
goaltender.
guy. Or potentially a better goaltender. And Lord knows there's 7 or 8 guys on the free agent market that would qualify for that.
The goaltenders they can be flashes in the pan, and that doesn't mean that it's all negative. They can be a flash in the pan 1 year later. They're the most unpredictable player position, I think, in hockey. It's very unpredictable how goaltenders will do. I think even more than pitchers in baseball, which would be a comparative, I guess. The Vancouver Canucks are thinking of buying out defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson's contract. They brought him in there, and it didn't quite work out the way they hoped.
Yeah, unfortunately, OEL turned into a little bit of a bust. He had 4 years and $29 million left on an 8-year, $66 million contract that he had originally signed with Arizona in 2018. Now, over the course of this buyout, they're actually going to be paying him $19.33 million over the next 8 years. If the team had retained Larsson, he would have been paid a total of $18.5 million over the next 2 years alone. But by spreading out the remainder of his contract over the next 8 years, it gives him a little more cap space to play with. Originally he had been brought in, as one of those guys for them to provide stability for the youngsters, but it just didn't work out.
Nope, not what happened. Around Toronto, the biggest conversation piece outside of Austin Matthews and his signing, because he needs to sign, he has 1 year left in his contract, is head coach Sheldon Keefe. New GM Brad Treliving. He gets a free coach here if he just lets this guy run out his contract. But do the Leafs really need a lame duck coach?
I've
If they're going to keep
always
him, they're
found
going to have
that
to
term
sign him.
interesting.
If they're going to keep him, they got to give him another year.
Well, they're going to. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to say, "Well, we're going to let Brad play around with the books and see if he can bring in anybody else for you to play with, and we're going to see how you do with what Brad brings in for you. And if at the end of that we like what we see, then potentially you could be extended." Now,
I don't like his chances.
Well, Friedman and Drager all but confirmed that Treliving has said that the search for a new assistant coach, because Spencer Carberry is gone to Washington, that Keefe is going to be included in the search for an assistant coach. So at this point in time, it looks like he's going to be back. I mean, with a 6.78 winning percentage, You kind of got to go with Keith, even if he hasn't had postseason success. Because you know what? They haven't had postseason success for a lot longer than the 4 years that Keith has been a coach so far.
That's
So
absolutely true. It was what, 19 years before this
easily,
year, right?
easily.
That they didn't win a first round.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my feelings about Keith are that there's an element missing in his coaching. I don't know what that element is. I won't pretend to have an knowledge over what that element is, but I feel there's an element missing, and I don't think it was one that Dubas helped him with. It's
Hmm.
possible. It's possible that with this new regime, the little bit of insecurity that I think comes into as a factor in the relationship he has now with this GM, because his previous GM Dubas was sold on him completely. They had a loyalty with each other. I don't know. Maybe this a little bit of insecurity may factor in maybe in helping him to reach another level. I really believe that he's a good coach. In fact, I think he's a great coach. I think he's the kind of coach. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say at least 24 out of 32 of the teams wish he was coaching their team and giving them those results during the year. And all of them would love the opportunity to be the home team through a portion of the playoffs. Nudge,
Oh,
nudge,
for
wink,
sure.
wink. So, is the reason that he has no success in the first round, it's the chicken and egg, right, Aaron? I mean, the big four were there before him, didn't make it past the first round before him. To your point, it only continues. So is the issue the coach? Is the issue the four players? Or is the issue the dynamic that was Dubas, the core four, and Keefe? You know, um, I really think that they have no choice but if I'm Trey Living, I'm keeping that guy because he's a free card. He's a guy that, well, I didn't hire him. I gave him a chance. Then he gets to hire his first guy. But the first guy he hires is after a year of watching the players, getting an inside look at them, and understanding maybe what are the positives, the negatives that if Keefe is let go, that Keefe has with the team and the organization itself, what kind of coach he needs instead of doing it just boom. He's here. A couple months later, he hires a coach for a team that he really doesn't know that well. You don't really understand a team by watching them on film. There's more to it than just the film. Not that it's irrelevant, it's just not the complete knowledge base required to make such an important decision as head coach of the
No, what's
Toronto.
also not to be underestimated here is Shanahan's involvement in the whole hiring process as well.
Absolutely.
Because don't forget, the Maple Leafs went to Gary Bettman and said, "Hey, we're looking to pick up a new general manager. Who should we get?" And it was with Gary Bettman's blessing that they went out and got Brendan Shanahan. Because according to some sources, Bettman was like, "Yeah, Shanahan's not a bad guy. You maybe might want to go for him."
Well, right
So
now his record is not very impressive.
no,
I mean, again, here's the problem that you and I will have, not with each other, but with anyone else. Who deserves the credit for that? That record that Keith has. How much credit does he deserve for that? How
yeah,
much does Shanahan deserve? How much does Dubas deserve? I think this is a good year to find out because now, the central figure in putting together the Leaf franchise, at least as the visual head of the organization and making those kinds of decisions, is gone now. Now, the emperor has no clothes, Aaron, in my opinion.
the interesting part here is a lot of fans are quick to blame Dubas for everything that went wrong. So
Absolutely.
I think in this particular case here, Treliving is more than right to keep Keefe and keep the core four on and see what happens. And then that way, at least conclusively at the end of all this, they'll be able to point and say, well, it wasn't Dubas, or well, it was Dubas. That this is the easiest and quickest way to get that done.
Or or it wasn't the coach or it was the coach. I mean, like
Yeah.
I said, he's got one free pass on the coach. All right, that's it for, well, no, one a little bit more. Let's talk about, my goodness. I don't know. You got three players that, I don't know, we're always semi on the outs with one faction of Leaf Nation, right? Whether it be the fans, whether it be the media, whether it be the coach, whether it be the GM, whether it be whomever, whatever. I don't think there's three players that fit into that category more than Bunting, Hole, and Kerfoot.
Yeah, these are three guys that are guaranteed to get you into a bar fight if you mention them in the wrong place. You know, Bunting got a 2-year, $1.9 million deal, and thanks to the fact he played with Matthews and Marner, saw a huge bump in his numbers. But his production, as well as his penalty drawing, sort of tailed off in March. So he got demoted to bottom six in favor of Calle Yarncroke, which partially unfair, but at the same time partially justified. If he's going to be spending a lot of time sitting in the box, I'd rather have him on the bottom four or bottom six, where he's likely to do less damage than as sitting out as a top line player. Coupled with his 3-game suspension, it's shades of Nazem Kadri all over again. So it's easier
I
to
don't
see
hold
him
that
go.
against him. I don't hold that against him. He got this shaft from the
Oh
league.
no, he was getting jobbed by the referees for
I
sure.
was that was and then the 3-game suspension he got in the grand context of the Stanley Cup playoffs and how physicality is up there. And him getting that suspension, especially when you saw in the series what happened, and there were no suspensions. In fact, there weren't even penalties for that kind of activity. So yeah, bum deal for him. And I think the same thing happened to Kadri. Another bum deal, I think, is Alexander Kerfoot. He scored a big goal, and how many big goals can you expect from a player, who fits into the salary space, the cap world, and also the position that he's put in to be successful? Bottom six. He did some stuff in the bottom six that helped the team make it, past the first round.
Well, the primary complaint is, while he may be a leader in the community, he's making $3.5 million a year, and to pay that to somebody who's in the bottom six is not really justifiable.
No
The
argument.
guys in the bottom six are the guys that are supposed to be making under $2.5 million, which is where Bunting fit in perfectly. The fact that Kerfoot spent a lot of time as a third or fourth line center was a problem for the Leafs because his salary was taking up space that could have been used for another guy. And now
Absolutely.
that Matthew Nyes is back and is poised for potentially being in the top six, that pushes Kerfoot even further down the depth chart. It's not a tenable situation for him, and it's not really a tenable situation for the Leafs.
If you don't say his name, don't see his name. Look at the stats, look at his experience, look at the position he plays, look at the size that he is. Know that he can skate a little bit. If it wasn't for his name, Justin Hall would be with the Leafs and nobody be arguing. There's something about this guy that people dislike. And I think, honestly, I think unfairly. I know sometimes when he's playing defense, sometimes he handles the puck like it's a grenade. But, I know a lot of defensemen who handle the puck, and it's like a grenade. I mean, the the quality defensemen in the National Hockey League are not many, right? There are not a lot of quality defensemen. Mostly, what the Leafs need, if it is that's what they need. They need a quality defenseman, and because they don't have a quality defenseman, Morgan Riley did okay in the playoffs, Aaron. But that's when he did well. Before that, he was not doing well. My point being that you need a certifiable top defenseman to do the things that he can do because he's that good, rather than rely on other defensemen who aren't that good to try to fit that position. So for me, it's less about dumping Hall. It's more about bringing in a guy that's a stud, and that's the biggest things the thing the Leafs need. They lack a stud defenseman. I know, and you and I both, I think, agree that Morgan Riley, when he is a stud defenseman, but you just don't get that enough from him. We did in the playoffs, but we know it dried up in the. So that's what the Leafs need. It's less about getting rid of Hole, more about bringing in a guy that's a stud. They need a stud defenseman.
No, they genuinely do. I mean, at 31 years old, he's only got a $2 million cap hit. He's also a right-handed blue liner, which is
And
not
yeah,
it's not readily available in the NHL.
you can't
Even if
sneak
he's
that.
even if he's considered to be a bit of a defensive liability, he's still somebody that you'd kind of like to try to hold on to, just based on the fact that he is one of those unicorn type players. You do definitely need right-handed shots playing the right side, and Hall can do that. He is, for the most part, competent. It doesn't help when the Maple Leafs goaltending goes to crap in the playoffs. You know,
Well, when you put
it's
him with as one of the number one in the shutdown, you make him a shutdown defenseman on a team whose defensive prowess, at least up until this year, was less than top notch. In the playoffs, they played better defensively. I don't think he was the problem. I think it's just they weren't getting opportunities and weren't getting shots from the point that you need to have in the playoffs, because a lot of the goals that are scored are from the guys standing in the crease. And if you can't get it through, this is one thing that when the Leafs traded Rasmus Sandin, that was something that he could do. That's the one thing, that's the one quality he had that, from my vantage point, I think the Leafs made a mistake, because he could do that. He could get the puck on net. He wasn't a big defenseman, obviously, so he wasn't. He tried to be physical. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, before he got traded, he was the most physical defenseman they had, and that's something that they lack as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sandin's production really tailed off once he hit Washington. But I mean,
I
that's
think
one
that
of the
was an
risks that you
emotional
take.
thing.
If you
I think,
move into a new system, it's difficult for you to adapt right
yeah,
off
and
the
I think
hop.
there was
So
emotion there too. Like, he was ready to be a Leaf, and let's be clear about something. And being a Maple Leaf, you're probably one of the most spoiled hockey players in the National Hockey League. I mean, they have they have a stereo guy. They have a guy that, if you want to set up a stereo system in your home, that they send to your house, and he puts together a stereo system. They're treated very well. Leafs are. I think that's the biggest problem with them, is that life may be a little too easy for them. They need life to be a little more difficult. And the difficulty that people go through in regular day-to-day issues, when it comes to pressure and being in a very important situation, that stands you well in the Leafs just don't have that toughness, where that self-reliant, I gotta win. There's no losing. Is not nope, not talking losing. And that doesn't speak to talent. That speaks to something other than talent. It's the character, like they say, the best thing that describes it is, you need players to get you to the playoffs, and then you need players to get you through the playoffs. And the Leafs don't have enough good players, or players that are capable of getting you through the playoffs. So that's why I'm standing up for Kerfoot, Hole, and even Bunting, who's a player who could help get you through the playoffs. But this is a guy that management of the way he played was poor, or he did not listen. Either way, the result was that he ended up being basically a problem for the team. Issue.
yeah,
He became an issue.
and that's nothing that you want.
No,
So
but unfortunately, that's what the Leafs have to do when they get the kind of players they need to win, and NHL teams need to win. Their players are judged far more harshly than other players. Bunting is a great example this year. We saw it with Spezza. We saw it with and you talked about Nazem Kadri. Yeah, he deserved to get suspended, but you know what? He paid extremely high for what he did that other players did themselves, but he paid much higher. And that creates a chilling effect on the Leafs and the Leaf organization, and putting together the type of team that wins a Stanley Cup. Rant over.
well, I certainly can appreciate that. It's something that they need to consider coming into July 1st. It's going to be, I think, one of the wildest silly seasons on record.
I still think they got to figure out a way to communicate with the National Hockey League, and at least embarrass them into treating them fairly. Because what I've seen these past couple of playoffs is, I hate to sound indignant, but it's pathetic. It's pathetic to watch that kind of officiating. It's disgusting. It's a turnoff. It really is. Hey, listen, let's go to news. And let's start with here on June 20. Did last night's by-election change anything in Ottawa, Aaron?
Looking strictly at it from a high overview level here, um, the federal conservatives won in Portage Lisgar over PPC uh, leader Maxime Bernier. Leslie captured nearly 65% of the vote. Bernier, who's a drop-in candidate, only managed to get 17.2% of the votes. Winnipeg South Centre saw Ben Carr, who's son of the late Jim Carr, who held the riding for the Liberals, easily recaptured the seat with a little more than 54% of support from the voters. Anna Gainey, a former Liberal Party president and former policy advisor to other cabinet ministers, nabbed 50.8% of the vote to keep Notre Dame de Grace Westmount red, following the resignation of Marc Garneau. But the tightest one was actually in rural Ontario, specifically in Oxford, where Arpan Khanna, as its newest member of parliament, got more than 43% of the votes tallied. Now, this is a bit of a concern, though, because the Liberals actually showed up stronger than that, stronger than expected in that particular by-election.
Very good. You know, we've talked because of the pandemic and the way things are going, and internet with children, teenagers, adults, people in general. There has been a bit of an acknowledgement. It's about time, too, by the way. Mental health, addiction, suicide prevention standards have been introduced in Canada. Something that's necessary, something that I hope will help people who are challenged in life in ways that not everyone can understand.
Yeah, there's an Ottawa-based nonprofit called the Health Standards Organization, and it's basically looking at the use of illicit substances in Canada, where nearly 4,000 people die by suicide each and every year. Kay Phillips says the HSO's aim is to improve care throughout people's lives, provide more support to family members, and meet the needs of diverse populations, including youth and Indigenous communities. Um, Consultations for this whole thing actually began back in 2017. About 1,500 different organizations, including hospitals and community care facilities, are clients of the program. And the federal government is developing national standards for the same issues. And the measures that were introduced today are meant to be a foundation before Canada introduces a 3-digit suicide prevention hotline in November. This is a really good thing. CP's health coverage is also in partnership with the Canadian Medical Association, and they'll be partnering to bring more information to the people about this initiative soon.
Acknowledgement of the bad things that happen at residential schools. Their survivors will see, or the survivors of the survivors will see a monument placed to remind us of what we need to be aware of and what we need to save and protect ourselves from.
Yeah, a survivor-led steering committee has announced today that a tribute to survivors and victims of residential schools is going to be built on the west side of Parliament Hill. This committee was actually originally appointed in April 2022 to select a site for the National Residential Schools Monument, in keeping with one of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 92 calls to action. Governor General Mary Simone said at a ceremony this morning, the monument is a significant step towards reconciliation, and it will serve as a reminder to parliamentarians the policies they create, legislate, and enforce have consequences. Now, the steering committee says it's worked in collaboration with the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation and residential school survivors to determine the location of the monument. And Justin Trudeau and Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez were both at the ceremony.
Well, it started as a tour to see the Titanic and its remains at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It has now turned into a real concern. Faint hope now stands based on some sounds that were heard by the Canadian Air Force.
I am going to resist the urge to make the usual jokes because there are enough people out there mocking these individuals. Regardless of their station in life or their affluence, I don't think it's really kosher to be doing that sort of thing. It's not cricket. U.S. Coast Guard Captain Jamie Frederick said that they have heard banging in an area of the Atlantic where a submersible disappeared 3 years ago near the wreck site of the Titanic. It was originally detected by a Canadian Aurora military patrol aircraft Wednesday, so that was earlier today, giving added impetus to the search for 5 people aboard the 6.4-meter vessel nicknamed the Titan. It's their understanding that the Aurora heard some noises not only Tuesday but Wednesday as well. Each of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, and looked for in different search patterns. They've been described as banging, but they have to put the whole picture together in context and have to eliminate potential man-made sources other than the Titan that could potentially be down there.
Yeah.
Um,
Sound travels farther and faster underwater than it does in the air.
yeah, so it's
So
something to
that's
be cautious of.
so that's 4 times as much area that you have to cover when you're talking about sound. If you imagine what I'm trying to say. Let's talk about Nova Scotia and Middletown Council calls for change after patient death at Soldiers Memorial Hospital. What's up with that, Aaron?
Well, there's an appeal that's gone out to Tim Houston. He's the Premier of Nova Scotia concerning an improvement to emergency services at Soldier Memorial Hospital. A patient there died recently. Now, this is not somebody that was in the ER. This is a patient that was already in the hospital, already in a bed. Um, the problem that they had was that the on-call doctor wasn't actually at the hospital. So 911 was called and firefighters were actually called in to start doing compressions on the individual. It's very concerning when there's not enough staffing there. The doctor that was supposed to be there unfortunately was at home. It took him about half an hour to get in. All the while with these doctors working on the individual who was declared deceased when the doctor finally arrived. They've been operating on reduced hours basically for the past year there due to a lack of doctors. It would take 5 to 7 doctors to restore 24/7 service. Now they are still trying to recruit people. Don't get me wrong, but at that point in time, they had one on-call doctor who was off-site for staff to call.
Wow.
There wasn't even a full team there. So um, this is a healthcare shortage that is very concerning for individuals in Middleton, and I do hope that they do manage to get this issue resolved so that this doesn't happen to somebody else's family. One is too many.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got 2 minutes left, Aaron. Pick a
Okay.
story.
Sure. So we mentioned this earlier in the year. Earlier in the show, talking about different endorsements for the mayor of Toronto. It does appear that now provincial politicians are weighing in on this, and Doug Ford has said he's going to vote for Mark Saunders in the race on the 26th. But he says, "But I'm staying out of the race. But I'm voting for this guy." Um, he said he recently put up a Saunders sign on his lawn because that's his right. Olivia Chow has a massive lead in this whole election. And Doug Ford has basically been out here beating the "if a lefty wins, y'all are in trouble" drum. And Mark Saunders has basically been saying, "Vote for me because I'm not like her." But they have provided very little source material as to indicate how they're going to be a better choice than Olivia Chow. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, she doesn't lack experience.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, for those of you Swifties out there who are looking to get in on some of the Taylor Swift concerts, there was an announcement. Now there are 40 new dates that have been added to her Eras tour. Unfortunately, none in Canada. It's heading overseas in 2024 with 4 nights at Japan's Tokyo Dome and 2 in London's Wembley Stadium, as well as France, Italy, Spain, Ireland, Austria, Germany, Poland, Portugal, and Singapore. It's going to be heading through Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil, but so far nothing north of the 29th. As a matter of fact, they haven't played in Toronto since 2018. That's her
Wow.
last Canadian show with her Reputation tour. So if you saw
Wow.
that, congratulations. Good luck
Wow.
to the rest of you Swifties out there, man. My heart goes out to you.
Canadian Swifties. They do protest. Thanks for doing
Yeah.
this, Aaron.
Appreciate that, Frank. It's been fun.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We're on a little bit of summer break on Fridays, so this show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. And don't forget to check out Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Subscribe, check out what we do. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.